I want to thank you on behalf of the people you represent here. You see, you're giving a couple days of your life to help protect other people, to protect their lives. That's an incredible thing. Now you're sitting there saying, well, they're paying me to be here. Doesn't matter. You see, each and every one of us is here because we choose to. We live in a country where we have the freedom to decide where we go, what we do. You don't have to work here. You don't have to work here. You don't have to choose to be here. The fact is, you've decided to give a couple days of your life on behalf of the safety of other people, and that is significant. That tells me a lot about the type of people you are. Because you see, you don't know how many days you have left here. You and I do not know how many days we have left in our life. And you're dedicating at least a few of them to the protection and safety of other people. You can't get those days back. At the end of this time, you can't buy those days back. You can't buy them and add them to your life anyplace else. You've given them to other people, and that says tremendous things about each and every person in here. Take the time and the days you've dedicated to that and make the investment you've made of your own life's energy and time and get the most you can out of the next couple of days of stuff you're picking up. Take it in, take it home with you, put it to use, and make it a safer workplace out there. Thank you very much. Have a safe year. Thank you. You start helping and protecting people, not just in your community, but in other communities around the country as other people learn and watch what you did so well. And it helps them to protect the people that work with them and the communities they work within. And the number of lives that are affected is profound because you're doing an excellent job, not only watches out for you. The more you focus on taking personal responsibility for safety and watching out for you, the more people get to come along. What's the most important thing to you in your life? And as you think about that question, or the answer to that question, is really how you discover what your personal values are. What do you really value? What's important to you? Now, you can take that to a business side and ask yourself the question, what is the most important thing to me in my business, in my job, in my career, what I'm doing? Now, I would suggest to you that a lot of safety speakers will come out and say to you, safety is number one. No, it isn't. I'm sorry, but safety is not number one. Getting the job done is number one. It's how you do the job. Safety is how you do the job. In reading your corporate materials, there were some hints as to some other things that you value. Integrity being one of them. Integrity, and then safety, several other things. I suspect quality is a very high value with you. Because once again, quality is something we as a nation have gotten, and I think we've gotten it because it's pretty easy. If you don't maintain quality, what happens? You're out of business, right? Your competition takes you over and you're gone. But safety is one of those things that's taken some people a little longer to catch on to. You see, what I'd suggest to you is the most important thing you do is what? Producing a product, serving people, making sure your clients get what they need. On the other hand, you need to what? Make sure your shareholders are making a reasonable profit.
Before John became a nationally known speaker, he worked in developing young people for life's challenges through the Boy Scouts of America. He is known for action-packed presentations that remind us just how much we make a difference in people's lives. Learning from our mistakes in a non-confrontational environment is one of John's greatest strengths. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, John Drebinger.
As I sat there, and I'm just engulfed with what's happening, I'm just having a ball with it, I look to my left, and I see my friend Jack sitting in the commander's seat. But what I noticed at that moment was interesting. See, he had a smile that was huge. He was just having a ball. And it was at that moment I realized that in his career, he had never taken the opportunity to get on board the space shuttle. And I discovered at that moment that when you make all these things happen, and you achieve your crystal clear outcomes, other people get to come along. Because I got what I wanted. He got to be there. And it's just like that for us in safety, isn't it? How many people do you get to help because if you're doing a great job as a safety professional? One of the things I love about this business, I love the safety profession. Because I love the fact that if I can help somebody become more effective in their communication skills, that just maybe one of you breaks through to an employee or another safety team member that gets through to an employee, gets them to work safely, and that day they avoid an injury. I just think it would be so cool to someday get a list of all the people that didn't get hurt. That's one report we don't get, isn't it? You don't get a report of all the accidents that didn't happen. That's one thing I want God to give me someday. I think it would be so cool for everybody in here, in the presence of God, to have God hand you a list saying, these are the people who you protected. Because, you know, we never get to meet a lot of them. That's what gets me excited. Just thinking about that person that didn't get hurt that day, and they go home at the end of the day, and their kid comes running over, and mom or dad gives them a hug because they were there, because you helped them work safely. Different places around the country, you'll see the petroglyphs, right? All the drawings that the people did early on, and they're amazing. I can just see one right now. There it is. There's Bob. And Bob's going out to hunt the buffalo. There he goes, leaving the village. All right. There's Bob going over the hill. Next scene, there's Bob, there's the buffalo. Bob creeps down the hill toward the buffalo. Next panel, there he is. He's finding the buffalo. He's getting closer. One of the buffalo looks up, sees Bob. The buffalo starts taking out after Bob. Next picture, the buffalo's getting closer to Bob. The next drawing, the buffalo is throwing Bob over its back. Okay, buffalo caught Bob. Boom, right? First industrial injury. Here comes the cave OSHA guy. Let's find out what happened here. We're going to have a little contest. You don't mind if I win, do you? Good. Take that right there. There's a little bottle inside. Put your hand underneath it. Good. Now, I have one that looks just like it. A tube and a bottle. Now, show everybody the bottle like so. Lift it up. Okay, good job. Okay, got it? Lift and put it on top. Cover it up. Turn it over. 2, 3. See what you got. Now, see, I want it right side up here. Give me a break, Hector. Okay, yeah, right side up. Okay. Yeah, turn it over. Yeah. Now, we do the same thing. Got it? Okay. 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 Cover it. Now, 1, 2, 3. See what you got. Now, you guys help them out so we get it. Okay, now get it right this time. Okay, here we go. You got it? Show me the bottle. Okay, cover it up. Cover it up. And go 1, 2, 3. Okay, now hopefully these guys will help him so he gets it, because otherwise we'll be here for days. Okay, here we go. Okay, now let's see what you got. That's what that was. Walked right into that one, Hector. Now, this is not a safety message, but it's a bonus brought to you by the Safety Department. It's called Never Cheat a Man at His Own Game. But how do you say something? Well, first off, I realized in our culture, there's a reluctance to intervene because it's not comfortable for us. I think in our culture, it's not comfortable for us to correct somebody else. And so I realized that. Remember last time I talked to you, I said, I want you to watch out for your own safety. I want you to take personal responsibility. Well, step 1 is, how do I make sure people will watch out for me? How do I make sure that Reggie will watch out for me? I mean, Reggie can see me doing something unsafe. His eyes have spotted something that could make a difference. But you see, the psychologists have studied they've studied how to tell me in a way that I'll feel comfortable. That when it's all done, I'll walk away going, oh, great. I don't feel put down or anything else like that. You know what they didn't study? How to make Reggie comfortable telling me. And when I read that from some very psychologists I respect quite a bit in the safety community, I read that in his book, and I said, wow, that's my job. I teach communications. I'm the expert at that. That's what I'll come up with, and that's what I did. I decided, hey, listen, I have to make it easier for him. So the first thing you can do is very simple. It's so simple, it's like most magic tricks. When you know how a magic trick works, it's shocking how simple and basic it is. I mean, most people go like, oh, you're kidding, because it's ridiculous what we do. But same thing with this. You see, all I do is say, Reggie, you ever see me doing something unsafe? I'd really like you to let me know. If I'm near a hazard or something and I don't spot it, maybe I'm having a bad day, maybe I'm distracted, maybe I'm worn out, maybe I'm tired, and maybe I don't see something, right? Maybe I need you watching out for me. So, Reggie, if you see me doing something unsafe, I'd like you to give me the input, okay? Would that be okay with you? But if I asked you that and I said, hey, would you watch out for me? If you saw me doing something unsafe, do you think at that point that you might say something? Yeah. Why? Because he knows I want the input. He doesn't have to sit there going, I don't know whether John wants me to tell him or not, right? He doesn't have to think, is this okay? He knows I asked him. So do yourself a favor. Ask the people around you to watch out for you. When you see a hazard or a condition or a behavior where somebody's doing something unsafe, they're not following the procedures, and you choose not to say something, you have decided to allow them to be injured. Whenever you talk to yourself, that's an internal dialogue. If you go home and somebody says, you're talking to yourself, you can now tell them that. You can say, oh, no, I'm having an internal dialogue. I was looking for somebody intelligent to talk to, and you're not it. It's what I call in-your-face communication. Do something that gets people's attention. I believe that it's the presenter's job to get the attention of the audience. It is not the audience's job to pay attention. You see, a lot of times we spend time in our culture, in this country, worried about who's at fault. You're at fault, he's at fault, whatever. I would suggest to you that when it comes to safety, it doesn't matter who's at fault if you're the one burned. If you're the one burned, bleeding, or broken, you're the one that pays the price for the injury, not the other person. What comfort would have been to my family standing next to my graveside saying, hey, God bless him, Dad was right, but he's dead. There are some times when you don't get points. What is your name, sir? Gary, come on up here. All right? Yeah, Gary's going, oh, great, why me? Here we go. We'll get Gary to come on up and just follow me right over here. Step into my office. All right. Here we go. Thanks for volunteering. Okay, now, stand right there, Gary, and check this out. Do you know what this is? What is that?
Ball.
It's a ball. That's why I picked you, because I looked around. I wasn't sure some of these people would get it, so I looked for you, and I knew you would. Okay, now we take this right like so, and I tear it in half, and I get 2. Now let me borrow your hands, please. Perfect, just like so. Come this way. You're not hiding things up your sleeve, are you? Okay, long sleeves and everything here. Hold those so you don't drop them. Okay, now turn your hands like that. Perfect. Let me have this one here. Okay, now this one here, this one here. This goes right here. Hold that one real tight. Bring it right here so they can see it. And this one should jump from my hand into yours. Turn your hand and slow. Whoa! You're good. Okay. You guys didn't tell me he knew this. Now, hold that real tight. Now, watch closely. You're going to have the, you really enjoyed breakfast, didn't you? We'll clean things up, watch it look good. Okay, now bring your hand back out front. Oh, you are good. Now watch. This one will go right there. That goes here. Now, how many do I have here?
One.
One what?
One ball.
One ball. No, actually it's $1, just like so. Now, you'll notice I didn't put this in his hand. There's a reason for that. The reason why is because sometimes I don't get it back. And that comes from years of my own experience. Now, safety is one of those things you want to learn what? From other people's experience. You don't want to learn from your own, because if you learn from your own experience, what? It means you get hurt, right? But you see, I learned from my own experience, because I used to put this in the hand, and a certain percentage of people would take it and say, oh, thank you, put it in their pocket, and then I'd be going, because I'm too cheap to not want to, but I couldn't ask for it back because that looked cheap. So I don't put it in people's hand anymore. Now, I've got a present for you, because I want you to think about safety 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I would suggest to you, by the way, that would be a good way to take your value for safety and enlarge it even bigger. Because the reality is, from all the materials you guys sent me and all the stuff I went over, there was one thing that just said it over and over again, that you care about the people that work for you, that you respect what they do, you value what they do, and for those of you who are in a leadership position, as you are here, you also understand it's the work they do that makes you the successful leader you are. What I'd suggest to you is this: those outstanding people that you have, it doesn't matter if they get hurt on the job or off the job if they're not at work the next day. They're not doing that outstanding work. What I'd suggest to you is we want to do safety 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Now I've got a present for you to help you remember that. And I looked around. I was lurking about here before during the break there, and I noticed most people have one of these. So how would you like this nice watch? There you go. Looks just like the one, yeah. Just like the one you brought in here, so we'll let you have that back. Thank you very much. Good job. Yeah, he's checking. Checking his wallet. Good thinking. Okay, be careful as you go down the stairs. All right. I was at a facility, and they told me about something that's absolutely boring. And that is material safety data sheets. Those are boring. Now, see, I don't believe anything's boring, so I said, okay, tell me one of the things that you're concerned about. And they said, we are concerned about this one chemical. If you inhale it, it's called trinitro or whatever it is. And I went, trinitro. I'm a certified hypnotherapist. That's a word that can put you in a trance. So they said, like, trinitro, and I'm like, oh. See, they start with the word first. They forgot about what I told you earlier, which is what? Why? Why do I care about trinitro or whatever it is? I said, what does it do to me? What happens if I inhale it? They said, well, if you inhale this, you can get testicular atrophy. Whoa! Got my attention. What if you started the meeting and said this: hey, guess what? We have in the facility here, we have a chemical that if you inhale it, you can get testicular atrophy. Now, you guys are used to, at our safety meetings, we have a raffle, right? We hand tickets to people out as they come in. We have a raffle. Today, we have a special prize. Today's special prize we have for you is an envelope. And quite frankly, inside the envelope is the prize. You see, today's prize in the envelope is the name of the chemical. See, I'm tired of you guys getting this for free. You see, safety people always sit there and we give stuff away. Nobody respects it. What if we came to a meeting and said, you want to know what the chemical is? Pay me. I got the notebook, I got the list. I know where it is. Pay me, I'll tell you. Otherwise, suck it in. The safer you make your workplace, you make the rest of the country safe. People catch the vision of what you do, and they move forward from there. So it really does go beyond even the walls or the gates of where your people work. A lot of guys there I knew had been there for years. I mean, I'd interviewed and talked to them, and they'd been there for a long time. And I knew, just as you know, that there are things in the workplace today that weren't there 2 years ago. They weren't there 6 weeks ago. Some safety devices or procedures didn't used to happen. And now they're there. See, I got to give him a good enough reason why. Now, what I came up with in this particular case is I said, listen, you know, I know you've got experience. You've got software up here other people don't have. But you see, this thing that we've come up with, and anytime there's a new safety policy, procedure, device, it's because what? Somebody paid the price for it somewhere. Somebody paid the price, and somebody figured out how to prevent it in the future. The fact is, the device may have been built for somebody without your experience, somebody that's in their first year. That beginning time when they don't really know what they're doing. One of those new guys. Now, the thing I love about magic is magic reminds us for a minute that the impossible doesn't really exist, that it's just an illusion, that no matter what we look at today, many years ago it was looked at as impossible. Just a few weeks ago, I was standing at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, first time I'd been there, standing where the rail was that the Wright brothers started their plane off for the first powered controlled flight. How many years before that had people believed you couldn't fly? And what's amazing, it was since, I think, 66 years later, 66 years later, we stepped onto the moon. In that short period of time, we went from not being able to fly to actually landing and standing on the moon. Isn't that amazing? Think in terms of your organization, your operation within this company, and what you do, and think how far back would you have to go before somebody would have said, the way you do what you do or what you do was even impossible. There are tools, devices, and things you use day in and day out that didn't exist not too many years ago. Certainly the modern technology that we have, I mean, that's not that old at all. And think, every single day there's something new, something more creative, another better way of doing something. So it really turns out that the word impossible doesn't serve us. And in the safety field, I believe that's really true. Because people used to say, as I mentioned before, accidents happen. But then somebody caught the vision and realized that's not true. Accidents happen when we allow them to happen, when we allow people to get hurt. But as soon as we catch the vision and decide we can do this job and we don't need to hurt anybody, we don't need to offer people up as sacrifices. I mean, you think back, how many years ago would human sacrifice have been something that would have been done, right? And you just kind of offer somebody up on the altar and that will make the crops grow. You know, you don't have to go too far back in industry to look where they'd say, hey, the cost of building a bridge or some kind of structure was a certain number of lives per week. You know, now we look at that now and say that's absurd, but at that point in time it was what? Acceptable. Question I have for you is, what's acceptable today that 20 years from now we'll look back on and go, that's absurd. How could they possibly believe that? See, I want you to think and be leaders that think 20 years in the future. Because the word impossible doesn't serve us. Now, I can remember a time when this nation took on the impossible. And it was in the 60s when we decided to travel from the Earth to the moon. And I got to tell you, as I mentioned before, I'm a nut about the space program. I love everything about it. I followed it since I was a kid. And I remember watching the day, and I look around the room, there's a lot of people in this room. You're too young to remember this stuff. I mean, seriously, you weren't here when we did the moon program. And of course, there's some of you in the room here that were there, and you don't remember it either because it happened in the 60s. Anyway, that was a phenomenon of the time. Some of it just passed by you, and some of you are going, oh, that's what happened. Anyway, but as it turns out, I remember the day that I watched Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Mike Collins walk across the crew access arm and crawl aboard the Apollo spacecraft, sitting on top of the giant Saturn V rocket, and watch them launch into space, and a few days later, stepping out on the surface of the moon. And I watched that thinking it would be so cool someday to actually sit inside a spacecraft, to actually be where the astronauts are. Now, to actually fly in one, I'm not so sure I'd be willing to do that. I'm not sure I have that kind of courage. Because sitting on top of a giant firecracker just doesn't seem to me to be something I want to do today. But to actually sit in a spacecraft, that'd be pretty cool. And I imagine that. Well, I mentioned I was a big fan of the space program, and back in 1987 was my first trip to Florida. I was down there doing a presentation for a company, and the first thing I scheduled in addition to the presentation was to zip over to the Kennedy Space Center and take the tour everybody gets to take. And I went ahead and I got on the bus and I drove out there, and they take you out to the launch pad. And there we were near the launch pad, and I looked and I could see the place where we launched. And this is the place I was looking at. Where we launched the space shuttle now is where they launched the Apollo rockets. And there I was looking as I got out of this bus about a quarter mile away from the launch pad, looking where we stepped off of the Earth and then we stepped onto the moon. And I was actually there. It was so cool. I was all pumped up. I'm just having the greatest day ever. And as I stood there, though, there was something wrong. There was that fence between me and the launch pad. And I thought for a minute, I'll bet you that special people get to go out there, that they let VIPs go out and walk around and look at the neat stuff. And standing next to that bus, I imagined what that would be like someday. I imagined what it would be like to step up to the elevator and to ride the elevator up and step out of the elevator. I knew I'd feel the breeze hit me in the face, because there's usually a breeze blowing down there. I knew I'd be able to walk over to the railing, put my hands on the railing, look down that flame trench where all that energy is released at launch. Then I look around, I could see the launch sites where they launched Alan Shepard, John Glenn, and the other astronauts. And then I knew I'd be hearing somebody tell me all about this, all the things we've done in the space program and we're doing now. I also knew I'd smell the ocean. I surfed from the time I was 13 until I was 20, and the ocean has a smell to it. And I knew I'd stand there and I'd be able to take in the smell of the ocean. Standing next to that little tour bus, I imagined all of that. Well, it wasn't until 10 years later that I'm back. But this time I'm there speaking to the safety team at the Kennedy Space Center. It was when my book just came out. And we'd given a copy of the book to each person at the seminar, and we got done with it. And part of the deal was, when I get done with the seminar, they're going to take me on a special tour, no bus. We actually put in the contract, special tour, no bus. Okay. If they'd have given me tickets to the public bus tour, somebody would have been hurt. Anyway, so we get done. And as soon as we get done with the presentation, we walk into the launch control room. You see it on TV all the time with all the people in there getting ready for the launch. And we walked in there. I actually went over and touched one of the computers. I'm really here. This is cool. And the next time I watched it on TV, I touched that. Anyway, so yeah, I'm really a weirdo when it comes to space, trust me. And I forgot to put one in my pocket, but I actually have a handkerchief that says NASA on it. Well, no, as a matter of fact, I think son of a gun, I do. See? See how sick I am? There we go. Ta-da! Okay, anyway. But, yeah. No, I don't have NASA underwear. But anyway, they were wondering over here. It made me a little worried. But okay. So I imagine what that'd be like. So I'm there. We're in the launch control room. We walk all the way up to the launch director's station. They had me pick up the phone. They take my picture. They said, say something. I said, go. Seemed much better than saying hold. That would be tacky. But anyway, I did that. They took my picture. I turned around and I look out. I could see the launch pad 3.5 miles away. There's these big louvered windows, these big things by the windows. And I said, what are those, to keep the glare off the computers when the sun's rising? They said, no, those are blast shields. If there's an explosion on the pad, shrapnel can travel over 3.5 miles. And those blast shields are there to protect them. I thought, wow, that's impressive. Then I started laughing. They wondered why I was laughing. Well, simple. I realized that the press area was outside the blast shield. Apparently you guys have the same opinion of the press. That's NASA's little joke on the press. It's like, ha-ha. Anyway, but sorry about that. Does speak something to the freedom of the press of this nation, though. It's really amazing. While the Russians were doing everything in secret, here we had the press right on top of it. To this day, the Delta launch site, where you see a Delta launch rocket go up, the press site is inside the debris field. The access the press has is incredible. It speaks something to how this country believes in freedom and keeping things open. It's really kind of neat. But we go into there. It was absolutely incredible. We get in the car. We drive out to the launch pad. We ride up the elevator, go to the 195-foot level, and I step out of the elevator, and a breeze hits me in the face. I walk over to the railing. I put my hands on the railing. I can look down that flame trench and look where all that energy is released at launch. I look up and I could see the old launch sites where they launched Alan Shepard, John Glenn, and the other astronauts. I could smell the ocean. And there was a guy there telling us all about the Apollo program. The safety guy on the launch pad was the guy who was there during the Apollo program. And then I see a bus pull up and come to a stop outside the fence. And all of a sudden, goosebumps went from my feet to my head because I realized that it wasn't deja vu. But I realized that 10 years before I had imagined what I was experiencing at that moment. And the reason I share this with you is it's something you can actually do. You can actually imagine what you want to achieve. Now, the way it works is this. Our brain takes all of the information in using our 5 senses. Your computer has inputs, a disk drive, internet connections, all sorts of connections within your office and all things like that. You got your, the little thumb drives and everything else. This computer has 5 input devices. What you see, what you hear, what you taste, touch, and smell. And it turns out that it processes information using those same systems. So if you know what you want to achieve, and you know what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, what it smells like, what it tastes like, you are more likely to achieve it. Now, I didn't know what the launch pad would taste like. I didn't have that one in there, okay, because it just didn't seem practical. Yeah, so he's thinking, yeah, this guy's big enough, he would have tasted the launch pad. But anyway, yeah, I saw that look. But the fact is that that I knew 4 out of the 5. If you have what I call a crystal clear vision, or a crystal clear outcome, it's one where you know at least 4 out of the 5 senses what it's going to be like when you achieve it. The question I have for you is, what does it look like when you achieve in your operation the safety performance that you envision for the future? One of the things I love about magic is magic reminds us for a moment that the impossible is just an illusion. The impossible doesn't really exist. And this is one of the places in the world where you know that better than anybody else. Every single person here at the center knows that day in and day out at NASA, you accomplish what people just a few years, maybe even a few months ago, said you couldn't do. You do things day in and day out. What I'd suggest to you is, do you apply that same thinking when it comes to safety? Do you apply that same, we can get it done no matter what attitude to when it comes to safety?
It was just a real joy to see what you were able to do with fairly common safety messages, but you kept us all literally on the edge of our chairs with our hands around our watches and pocketbooks. And brought home a lot of very, very good lessons. And I want to thank you very, very much for coming down here today, as well as for sharing with us how you feel about the space program, which personalized the show. And I don't know, some of these guys in the blue suits back there, maybe they could stow you away.
That would be fun. There you go. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.